So the topic today of our satsang is very interesting. Did God create the universe or become it? Let's see what's the difference between creating and becoming. If we take a day-to-day example, we've heard of artists, we know artists, sculptors. They are constantly creating new things. They are creating objects of art with a lot of material that they gather around, with paints, with canvases, stone, clay, chisels. They gather these materials and create whatever object they desire. And they become the owner of those possessions, of those objects. If they love them very much, they may even put them up in their own houses or give them away as gifts to their friends. If they need the money, they may sell it. And perhaps even if they are not fully satisfied with that object, with what they have created, they may change it about. They may repaint the canvas, or they may break their sculpture into a more smaller pieces of sculpture. So they may do all that because they own that. And not just artists and sculptors. Aren't we all also creating something all the time? We work, we create something. We are constantly trying to create wealth, money, possessions, house, car. We are constantly working in this world so we can create something for ourselves. But what about the universe? How is the universe created? When we talk about the universe, the Upanishads, they tell us that in the beginning there was nothing but God. So if there was only God's consciousness, if there was only Brahman, then how did the universe, how did he create it without a canvas, without any paints, without the clay? So then the scriptures tell us that the God's consciousness itself became us, became this creation, became this world. Literally, like the artist or the sculptor becomes his own paintings, becomes his own creation. Like clay becomes its own utensils. That is why in creation, God's consciousness is everywhere. And this becoming, the only example I can really think of, which is also incomplete in itself, is the example, the relationship of a mother, of parents with their children. We know that this is a creative process. We are creating children, we are making children, we are giving birth to children. Do we use outside material to give birth to children? No. The child is made from our own flesh and bones and blood and our own genetic material. It is part of us. A part of us becomes this child. How is it different from an artist creating a creation outside and us creating a child who is a part of us? If we've read psychology a little bit, we know they say that parents tend to live out their dreams through their children because they realize, even unconsciously, that this is a part of me. They love that child unconditionally, and they may even harm themselves in the process of trying to protect that child. They are only concerned for his happiness and well-being and go to ends of the earth to get that. We've all heard that for a mother, her own child is the most beautiful in the world, whatever his flaws. Even if he becomes a criminal, what happens? The mother does not give up on him. If he takes her possession, she doesn't say, oh, he must go to jail for that. No, she's constantly loving and trying to reform him. And this is exactly what the relationship God also has with us. He loves us unconditionally. We are a part of him. If a part of us, like a finger, starts to ache, gives us trouble, do we cut it off and throw it away? No. In fact, we give it more love, more care, and more attention so that we can bring it back to health, to bring it back to like the other fingers. So we are not just created objects for God, we are his children. We are a part of him, and he loves us no matter what. As Krishna says that in this reading, as Hari read, I am in the hearts of all beings, and I am the self of all. So once Yoganandaji tells us of an incident that happened with him. He goes to a farm to buy some fruits, some cherries. And he meets the farmer and he feels that the farmer is a little troubled. And he asks the farmer, they get into a conversation with each other, and at some point the farmer very sadly says that God is really going to punish us. We are all sinners, and he will damn us to the eternal hellfire. So Yoganandji, as we've spoken about, tries to tell him, but God loves us, and he's all merciful, all forgiving, don't worry. But the farmer gets very agitated. He says, what nonsense, no, 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 this is very true, God is going to punish us, we are all sinners, and so on. Since he gets agitated, Yoganandji lets it be. To pacify him, he buys some more fruits and everything. And then afterwards he comes and again tells the farmer, I know all these things. I know you are in some kind of trouble. You are feeling troubled by something. So the farmer looks at him and says, how do you know? Yes, I am. So Yoganandji says, on account of your son. So he says, yeah. So my son is doing a little bit of, not very good things, and I've tried to reform him, but he continues on his path of wickedness to a great extent, and I'm unable to do anything, and I'm very worried about him, and I feel very sad about it. So Yoganandji leans forward in a very conspirational way. He says, oh, I can find you a solution. I know all these things, and I know just the perfect plan. So this farmer says, really? He, a hope starts to shine in him. He feels that this man has wisdom and he can help me perhaps with my son. He can give me a solution. So Yoganandji goes on with that, conspirational air and says, do you have a couple of men you can trust? So the farmer says, yes. Do you have some stout rope? Farmer says, yes. Then he says, do you have a big oven in your house? So the farmer says, yes, I do. But now he's becoming a little suspicious. What is this man trying to tell me? But Yoganandji says, don't worry, all your problems are about to be resolved. Do you have all this? The farmer says, yes, I have everything. So he says, very good. Now when your son comes home, tell these men to quickly catch him, tie him up with the rope, and roast him in the oven. So the farmer says, are you crazy? Why will I roast my own son? There is no way. You are a madman. Go away from here. So Yoganandji says that, at the suggestion of harming your son, roasting him for just this one lifetime in the oven, and you are just an earthly father, if you have such a problem, what do you think the Divine Father, who has all the love in the world, has divine love, has 1,000 times that love for us, do you think he can ever punish us eternally like this? And the farmer understands, and he realizes that yes, it is just not possible, because God is all love, and God is our own consciousness, us and in this creation. We just don't realize it. Yoganandji says this is a dream. This is God's dream. And God is dreaming all this just to play, to entertain himself with different roles. Just as when we dream, all those images and figures that come, they're not different from us. They are our consciousness. Similarly, when God dreams, these roles for us, we are not different from him. But what do? We become attached to these roles that, we are playing. We feel that we are finite, we are confined to these roles. Then we suffer. So Yoganandji says it's so foolish to suffer. We are immortals, and we suffer from these dream injuries in this dream play. Oh, I'm dying of a gunshot wound, or I'm dying of a disease, when this is all a dream. And we inflict all these mental tortures on ourselves. We have so many desires. I don't want to die. I want to be happy all the time. I want this and that and wealth. And for this, we keep reincarnating constantly all the time. When what are we? We are Sat Chit Anand. We have all the power in the world. We are ever conscious, ever new joy. We are ever existing. So what concerns us? We forget this power, and what do? We completely lose our freedom. We are not even able to make free choices in the world. Are we able to really freely act and make the right choices? No. We are conditioned. If I'm an Indian or an American, I think accordingly. If I'm a male or a female, I think like that. My karmic tendencies, my habits, everything influences me constantly. And I'm not even able to act in a free manner because I think I'm separate from another person. I try to gain as much as I can just for myself. There is a very ancient Upanishad called the Brihad Aranyak Upanishad, a tongue twister. And it says everything is Brahman and we are all connected and we are all committed to each other. Because whatever action we take today will also influence another person. So our duty is to nourish, it is to nurture each other rather than be in competition to each other. It's like saying this is my body and suddenly the organs of the body decide to go their own way. The stomach says, oh, this food I'm going to just keep for myself. I'm not giving it to the intestine or I'm not giving it to the blood to take everywhere. So how can we do that? Because we are all connected. We are that one body of God. But because we decide that we are limited, we want to confine our love. And the masters who are self-realized, what do they tell us? Do not confine your love just to maybe your family, just to maybe more acquaintances. We don't even want to. We are not able to love strangers. And those who harm us or abuse us, definitely not. But what about the self-realized masters? They have that consciousness within themselves that we are all one. And they are able to give that love to everyone, even people who abuse them. They don't do that, oh, I have a job as a saint, now I better love everyone because this is my job, I'm a saint. No, they have already realized the fact that this is me and this is part of me. This is my little finger. So how can they even think of harming another person? Yogananji recites that tale when Christ is on the cross. What does he say? Yogananji says if Christ wanted, he could have commanded. He said that I can call for 12 legions of angels from my Father. He had infinite amounts of power to do anything, but he allowed that torture. He allowed those abusers to abuse him. And what does he say in the end? All that he says is, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Because they realize that it is all God, and this whole universe, this whole creation is nothing but a play of God. Oh.
When I read today's satsang topic, did God create the universe or become it? The first thing I remembered about universe was a video circulated by NASA. It was a person laying relaxedly on the lawn, and then there's a camera on top of her which starts zooming out. And it zooms out slowly so that person becomes a tiny speck, and then the house and the lawn where she was laying down disappears, and then it zooms out and shows the whole city. Further it zooms out, the city becomes a microspeck and you can see the whole state or the country. Again, it keeps zooming out continuously, and then we could see the earth, and then earth becomes a tiny speck, and then the solar system becomes a tiny speck, and then the Milky Way becomes a tiny speck, and it keeps zooming out and then we realize that we are just a really small part of this vast universe. And who created it? Of course, God. Some people ask, then who created God? Maybe there's a super God, but then at some point all of this started. And our scriptures say that there was only pure consciousness before creation happened. And when before the creation started, to create something we need a creator. And this creator, usually to create something we need materials. Like Vasudha was saying, there are artists, there are sculptors, they need materials. But then God was absolute and there was no one else. He is the one without a second, and he was second to none. There was only God. So he couldn't go out and order materials like we order when we build a house or we paint a painting. He had to become the creation. And when he became the creation, it's beautifully explained that how God manifested into matter. The consciousness became energy, and energy became matter. And this book, Whispers from Eternity, there is inspirational revelation of what God is. Page number 203, it's a 5-page article which Paramhansa Yogananda has written. It's named as Our Dream World. I'm just going to read a couple of lines from this, but I insist that you read all the 5 pages later on. It's from page 203 from Whispers from Eternity. The Spirit was invisible, existing alone in the home of all space. He piped to himself the ever-new, ever-entertaining song to perfect bliss. As he sang through his voice of eternity, he wondered if aught but himself was listening to this song. To his astonishment, he felt that he was the cosmic song itself and also the singing. Even as he thought thus, he became two, spirit and nature, positive and negative, man and woman, the peacock and the peahen, the stamen and the pistil of the flower, yes, even the male and the female gem. All these he first became in thought alone. The idea cosmos was brought out of the Creator's desire to be twain. The cosmos then froze to become the astral universe, and last of all, the astral energy froze and became matter. And it goes on for a few more pages, and it's a very beautiful reading. You can read it later. Now, all the sages who were self-realized have said the same thing. A saint called a Siddha called Tirumular, he said that he quotes about an incident. Once there was a sculptor, he sculpted an elephant for the temple, and he invited another sculptor to visit the sculpture and to give review about it. He actually wanted to boast about his sculpture. And the other sculptor got his son with him. And as soon as they entered the room, the little kid started screaming, and he said, "Dad, don't go near that. That's an elephant. It might kill you. Don't go there." But then the sculptor said, "Son, it's not a real elephant. It is just a sculpture." And Tirumular says that the stone and the elephant were one and the same. Son saw the elephant, the father saw the sculpture. And another Siddha gives a similar example. He says, if you see the dancer, there is no dance. If you see the dance, then there is no dancer. He says, for example, when a couple of women, they went to see a dance performance, one of them really loved dancing, and another friend was not that into dancing. So when both of them watched the dance and they came out, the girl who was not so interested in dancing, when they were discussing, she said, "Oh, I really liked the earring the lady was wearing when she was dancing. I really liked the sari she was wearing." But then the lady who was really watching the dance never noticed those ornaments, never saw those frills. She said that, "I saw her dance. Which part of the dance did you like?" And the other girl replied that, well, I didn't see the dance, I was seeing the dancer. Similarly, when God became the creation, now we are given a choice, a free will. We can either see the creation or the creator behind the creation. Now, another question which might cross our mind is, if God is everything, then why is there so much evil on earth? Swami Kriyananda in Art and Science of Raj Yoga says that, it gives a very beautiful example. He says, when a novelist writes a novel, there are both good characters and there are both villains, bad characters, there are villains. Just because there is a villain in the novel doesn't mean that the novelist is a bad person. Similarly, even hatred and anger is expressed through God's power alone. And that doesn't mean that God is a bad person. He is unaffected by these. If God is in stone and trees, then why can't we see God in them? And what is so different from a stone, and what's the difference between a stone and a human? Again, Swami Kriyananda says that a human being is blessed with a nervous system which can express God's consciousness fully, whereas a stone does not have it. So, we are given with a free will, and we also have a responsibility. I'll quote a passage from Autobiography of Yogi. It's here. The Spirit of God that actively sustains every form and force in the universe, yet He is transcendental and aloof, in blissful, uncreated void beyond the worlds of vibratory phenomena. Lord has created all humans from the limitless joy of His being. Though they are painfully cramped by the body, God nevertheless expects that souls made in His image shall ultimately rise above all sense identification and reunite with Him. God expects us to reunite with Him. And how do we do that? How do we shift our attention from the creation to the Creator? Again, Paramhansa Yogananda gives the solution in Autobiography of Yogi. By daily stilling my thoughts, I could win release from delusive conviction that my body was a mass of flesh and bones. The breath and the restless mind I saw were like storms which lashed the ocean of light into waves of material forms. Breath and restless mind. We have to still our breath and restless minds. How do we do that? By yoga. We have given techniques. We are given all the techniques we need. Energization exercises, Hong Song, meditation on Om. And as the reading said, God said, I am the Om. By attuning ourselves with Om, we can be one with the Creator. Also in Autobiography, Master says that when a person shifts his allegiance from the creation to the Creator, he is above karma. Karma does not influence him. And by the practice of yoga and meditation, we can become one with the Creator. And that's what the Creator expects us to do. Thank you.